In this talk, I like to share with you how we can enhance our intellectual capital value and at the same time fight the pandemic. I earlier proposed that we all, over a period of time, accumulate our own invisible capital, all the positive attitudes we have, all the strong things that we have, all the knowledge, attitudes, skills, experiences, views, opinions, all these put together, whatever is in our mind, it constitutes our invisible capital or intellectual capital. And this can be valued if you like. There are ways in which the value can be computed. I am not going into the details, but I would like to say that we all have a invisible capital, like the share price of any company. The share price of a company is listed in the respective stock exchanges. For example, a share price of a company, a share of 1 rupee may mean 14,000 rupees or 1400 rupees, or depending upon the kind of the company it is, the price goes up. Once, long ago, Bill Gates said that it's only 3% of the intellectual or of the uh, market value of Microsoft that gets accounted for by in the balance sheet, which means 97% of the market value of that particular company, Microsoft, almost about a couple of decades ago, was invisible. This is the intellectual capital. Around that time, I calculated the intellectual capital value of many companies, and I found in India too, particularly in IT sector, there are companies whose intellectual capital value is as much as 90 to 95% of the market value of that particular company. Just as I think there is a share price index, we also have a value of ourselves. We build this value. The only difference is the share price is listed in some of the stock exchanges, but our value is listed here. The way you talk, the way you walk, the way you behave, the way you interact, the way you interpret the various situations, and the way you lead your life. These are all indicators of what is the strength or what is the amount of intellectual capital value or invisible capital you have. A person with a high invisible capital or intellectual capital is always positive in attitude, is highly goal driven, purposive, result oriented, value driven, problem solver, takes initiative, appreciates good points in other people, understands his or her own kind of strengths, understands the weaknesses and is not taken aback by the weaknesses. He or she will strive to overcome these weaknesses, use these weaknesses to his or her surroundings, her own or his own self advantage, for the family, for the society, for the organization, for the country, and so on. I think this is the beauty of the invisible capital value. We acquire these through knowledge. Knowledge consists of whatever we have learned in our school days, college days, and subsequently. All our experiences we have had in different organizations, all the great accomplishments that you have had, all these things put together will constitute your intellectual capital value or invisible capital value. Uh, at one point of time, it is said that good leaders always train others to be leaders, and good leaders are good teachers, and good leaders always have a point of view. So, the kind of point of views that you have, which are coming out of your own experience, can be considered as your assets. Whatever it is, good or bad, people agree with you or don't agree with you. This is an outcome of your experience. So, you should feel proud about it, and you should be willing to test it out. You should be willing to correct it. That is when your own intellectual capital value will get enhanced. There is one Michigan University professor who did a lot of research on leadership engine, and he talked about the importance of having a point of view and the importance of sharing the point of view as a leadership quality and so on. In one of my classes at IIM Ahmedabad, I was asking students in my talent management course to identify whether they have a teachable point of view which they can teach others, and can they therefore convert this into a financial value. And in some of the students, when they started looking at what is the kind of conversion they can make of the experience they have into financial terms, we found that it gets into several millions and billions of rupees or dollars. For example, if somebody is able to manage to get admission into one of the IIMs, and if the person starts looking at his own 20 and odd years of life, 22, 23 years of life, 18 years of life, whatever it is, how he has been able to make it to IIM by competing with almost about 3 to 4 lakhs of people, and has been one of the maybe 1,000 or 2,000 of the selected persons. So in my class, somebody said that yes, the moment I start thinking about it, how I got in here, I can talk about my school experiences, how I worked in the school, what kind of things that I have done. So I can write an entire history about my teachers, about the subjects I taught, the I learned, and the way I behaved, the way I worked hard, and so on. Same way, I think I can talk about my engineering or somebody else on commerce and so on, and how I prepared for this and how I have been able to get into IIM and so on. So he said I can write a 300 to 400 page book, and this book can be, if you want to put a value on this, it is you can put a value if at least 1 million students read every year this particular book, because out of every 3 to 4 lakhs who appear for it, I'm sure that there will be at least about 3-4 times of that number that are desiring to appear, and therefore if even 1 million people read this book, you can convert just in one particular year by documenting my experiences, how much I have contributed in terms of financial terms. Now look at this. Now, if this is what I can do in 1 year, in the next, think of the next 30 to 40 years of my work life, what is it that I can make? So this is the invisible capital that you have. Or people like, if you look at Chetan Bhagat, who is a famous author, writer, and who is quite well known across the country. If you look at one point of time in IIM, he never even thought that he is going to be one day become such a famous writer. But I think when he first wrote his book, I was told that not many publishers were even willing to take it and so on. And you see what Chetan Bhagat has become. So we all have this invisible capital in us, like what Chetan Bhagat had, Raghuram Rajan had, or Sanjeev Bikhchandani had. I mean, these are all examples that I'm taking from IIM, but I think there are many other people who probably have very high invisible intellectual capital value. Some of them have been able to convert it into the society and became noticeable and noticed and talked about. But let me ask you this question. If you are listening to my talk, may I ask you, what is your own intellectual capital value? Can you list on a piece of paper all the strengths that you have accumulated over a period of time, the viewpoints you have, what you think is good, what you think is bad, the positivity that you have, the negativity you have, the way you have acquired it, and the way you can overcome that particular thing and convert it into positivity and so on. Your self concept, the glow that you get sometimes, ideas you have, creativity you have. So if you start really looking at yourself, look inward, reflect about yourself, meditate, write, do whatever then you start discovering there is a large part of you which probably is invisible to you, but it's visible the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you conduct yourself and so on. So this is what is the invisible intellectual capital. We use small simple exercises, like we ask people to write an essay like who am I, and when they write an essay we examine what dimensions are presented in this. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as an initiative taker, or are you living as a conformist only to follow whatever others ask you to follow? I mean, we should all perform our roles, but we can also be creative and bringing out something more than what other people expect from us. So, are you an initiative taker? Are you goal driven? Are you a problem solver? Are you aware of your internal strengths? Are you a constant learner? Are you excited by the kind of strengths you have? Are you looking at your weaknesses and are using your weaknesses also as points for learning, and weaknesses as accept these weaknesses and say that, look, I think who doesn't have weaknesses? Maybe over a period of time I can overcome these weaknesses and so on. I think this is what is intellectual capital value. I like to conclude this by saying each one of us have tremendous intellectual capital or invisible capital. This is accumulated experiences and so on. Now the question is, how do I use this to fight something like a pandemic? When there is an emergency or a pandemic which none of us has experienced, you can get lost and keep wondering and then forget about the great intellectual capital value you have. The fact you have survived to face the pandemic itself shows that you have something in you which has brought you up to here. But you look inward and say, what is it that I can do to fight the pandemic? How can I use the experiences? For example, I have said, if there is a death of a loved one, somebody whom you like, an associate, a relative, and so on. Now, it makes you feel bad. We mourn. But after that, we should get back and say that what is it that I can learn from this? Now, it may be temporarily depleted your emotions, but these depleted emotions can come back to you and enrich. You can enrich yourself emotionally by writing a great essay on that particular individual, lessons to be learned from so and so, disseminating it, sharing with others. So soon you will come out of it and you will start looking at the person whom you are missing as a source of inspiration, and that enhances your own intellectual capital value. Similarly, if you have had a bad experience or if you have to work from home, rather than cursing working from home, you start looking at the positive side of working at home, and then you start seeing so many good things about it. So a positive attitude is very essential for building up your intellectual capital. The moment you realize your intellectual capital, the moment you realize that even a tragic experience can be an opportunity to build yourself up, and you are very much on the path to become a what I called in my book on effective people as a super effective person. All the people whom I included in this book of effective people are the ones who were to begin with, who have done their job well, very sincerely, were all goal driven and always concerned about the society at large, wanted to make a difference for other people. Then they didn't stop with that. When they have been able to accomplish a few things, they went on to write these, record these, talk about these, and became from effective to very effective people. And some of them didn't stop at that and they started building institutions. That is where I have given examples like Dr. Devi Shetty in medical profession, Anil Gupta in teaching profession, and in social work there are many people, in civil servants, people like Bodia and so on. I think in every profession there are people who were not satisfied with the little bit of intellectual capital they have, and they started using it for the welfare of the society and became institution builders and super effective people and so on. So friends, I want to conclude, recognize your intellectual capital or invisible capital, and particularly during times like the pandemic, use it to emerge as more successful and more effective human being. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, any comments to make, you're most welcome to write to me at tvrao@tvrao.com or at tvrlsblr@gmail.com. Thank you very much.